Well, good evening and welcome to June 1st edition of How to Heal When You Have to Deal. Hi, I'm Nathan Ray with Rays of Hope, and I'm glad to have you here. And tonight I'd like to talk about the power of yes and. Last week I had the privilege of doing some 3-day workshop for members of staff for a new foster care receiving home that's opening up in the local area. And one of the things that we talked about, and that's a very important piece of some of that workshop that I was doing, is how powerful the word no is, and how much that can really shut down communication. If someone asks me for something and I say, no, I'm not going to be able to do that right now, but maybe I can do it another day, or something along those lines, a lot of the listening and the understanding and feeling heard goes away as soon as I use the word no. And even if I'm trying at that point to say, oh, I'd like to find a compromise and I'd like to do this at a different time, or I'd like to do it in a different way, that gets lost because the word no is so powerful to us as human beings. The same thing happens when we say, yes, but. Oh, would you like to go out and do this thing? Yes, but I'm kind of busy, or I don't have time right now. Can we do it another time? Something along those lines. Again, that yes, but ends up being translated by the recipient very often as a no. And again, communication comes down. However, when we're able to transform our way of speaking into a yes and. So would you like to do something? Yes, I really would like to do something with you. And right now is not a good time. And I'd like to see if we can schedule this for another time. At that point, we are validating what we're hearing and we are moving forward. So how does this relate then to our coping skills and learning how to heal when we have to deal? Well, right now, because of heightened tensions after 2 months plus for most of the country in some form of restricted activity, in some form of stay home, stay healthy type of order, whether it's at a state level, whether it's at a county level, whether it's at a city level, after 2 months plus of job insecurity, financial insecurity, food insecurity, relationship insecurity, as we are limited in our ability to actually interact in person with a lot of people that we value in our lives. All of that builds up, causes a lot of stress, and very typically then can lead us toward miscommunicating with each other and taking things out of context, or taking things in a much more negative way than they're actually intended. So at that point then, when someone says, I would like to do this, and they hear, well, that's great, but no, we can't, then that reaction may be way out of proportion to the actual situation. So I'd like to bring it really into some very current events. Not that the COVID-19 restrictions and pandemic are not current. However, particularly in the United States of America right now, we have something else that has taken over and dominated national discussion, whether it's mainstream media, whether it's social media, whether it's day-to-day interactions. And that is the frustration, the anger, the just absolute shock and trauma of the events in Minneapolis here this last week, and then the resulting reactions by people not only in Minneapolis but around our country and indeed around our world. And so I got permission from my friend Debbie, and thank you, Debbie, for giving me permission. She had posted something up and gave me permission to share some of it with this video. So I'm gonna read from this for just a moment here. So Debbie says, I've been reading the news and watching videos of what is happening, seeing all the posts on social media and talking with people about things. And honestly, it's taken a great toll on my heart. Debbie goes on to say that the main thought she is left with is that people are trying to turn things into all or nothing, this or that. It has to be one way or another. And the reality is that our lives and our world is much more complex than that. Debbie says, we can respect the office of the president and be appalled at the way the current occupant is doing things. We can be mindful of COVID concerns, wear a mask, and believe that people have a right to their own decisions. We can want our businesses to open and think that it's okay to wait a little longer. We can understand our privilege and not understand how racism remains as prevalent as it is. We can support our police officers and be completely appalled and devastated by the corrupt ones who murdered George Floyd. We can be supportive of protesters, understand the rioting, and be saddened by the destruction being caused. It is never just one way or another. So my thoughts on this then, and how do Debbie's thoughts then tail in and work with my point around being able to say yes and? For many people, if someone does not agree with every single word that they say in the way that they're feeling right now, then because of heightened tensions, stress, and trauma, quite frankly, they are much more susceptible right now to taking any even small disagreement or small attempt at looking at the complexity of some of the issues that are facing us as citizens of this state, as citizens of this country, of this world. And they can take that as meaning that very negative way, and that someone is then opposed to them and therefore an enemy. And I think that we're really seeing that right now playing out in cities and towns and in conversations between friends, acquaintances, coworkers, and on social media around our country and around our world. Remember that all of these things that we're dealing with are very complex. They can't come down to just a meme that we post on Facebook. They can't come down to just a few sentences or even a few paragraphs. And we cannot expect that everyone is going to see things exactly the way we are. And we can't expect that if someone doesn't agree with every single piece, that means that they are opposed to every single piece. People have different backgrounds, they have different experiences and different history. I have friends who come from a wide variety of cultural backgrounds. The color of their skin may be similar to mine, it may be very different. They have different experiences, they've gone through their own different stressors and trauma in life, and they're struggling to deal with it through the lens that all of those things have given them. I truly believe that we are seeing a lot of outrage around the continued appearance and documented downplaying of how law enforcement and our justice system in general treat people who are coming from different cultural backgrounds. And I believe that a lot of the anger, a lot of the violence, a lot of the continued expansion of that violence and continued heightening of property destruction and unfortunately hurt to people and property is being greatly exacerbated because of the stress and that boiling over of a lot of feelings that are coming from other places as well. And I believe that we can all do our parts by remembering that other people are coming from different places, that other people have had different experiences, and trying to listen to them, hear where they're coming from. And even if I can't relate specifically because of my own history, I can still appreciate, I can still validate, I can still say, yes, I hear you, and I'm upset with you. And I don't think that rioting and destruction of property and continued physical violence is a good way to address this. And I would like to look for ways to address it so that it actually changes. I hope that this helps, and I hope that this inspires you to look at yourself, to recognize the lens that you're putting onto the events that are happening in our country, in our state, in our county, in your city, and strive to say yes and. Yes, this is wrong, and the reaction is also wrong in many circumstances, and I would like to find a way to make things better. Thank you for listening. This has been Nathan Ray from Rays of Hope. I hope that you have a wonderful evening.